But the beautiful thing is that when Shirley and I were flying to Kansas City and I thought my dad was gone, I went through my childhood again. And I thought about all those moments of happiness and the happiest days of my life, and I was immediately reminded of the very happiest days I've ever experienced. When I was between 10 and 13 years of age, when my dad and I would get up in the morning, crisp and cold, wintry morn, 5 o'clock in the morning before anybody else was up, sun hadn't come up, put on our hunting clothes and our hunting boots, take our little dog and slip out to the car and drive 20, 25 miles outside of our little town to a place that I used to call the Big Woods because the trees looked so big to me. We'd lock the car and go over the fence and down along a creek and follow that creek bed back into those woods, 2 or 3 miles. And my dad would find a place for me where a tree had fallen and made a little room there, and he'd get me situated under there, and then he'd go around the bend and he'd get himself situated under another tree, and we'd wait out there for the sun to come up. And the little animals didn't know we were there, and the squirrels would run back and forth, and the birds, and all of the beautiful panorama of God's nature, which he loved, would unfold before us in the morning. And something took place out there in those woods between my dad and me that didn't happen anyplace else. There was a oneness and a closeness and a communication between us that made me want to be like that man, that made me want his values for my values and his life for my life and his God for my God. It made me identify with him. And I appreciated him, and I thought of those happy moments. And then I was overwhelmed with emotion, and Shirley said, "What are you thinking now, Jim?" I said, "I'm thinking about the moment at the end of my life, which will come so quickly, when I lie at the point of death and my 2 children stand by my bedside and contemplate the happiest moments of their life, and what will it be? Will it be a dad who was always racing and running to catch a plane, to go off and speak to somebody? Will it be a dad who was always writing letters and counseling somebody and talking on the phone and being the last one to leave church on Sunday morning, never having time to talk? Will it be a dad who's being a big man on television and radio, making money? That will not matter that much to me then. What will matter to me will be what will matter to you at that moment. And that is those moments of closeness and warmth and fellowship within the family, heart to heart between generations. And I resolved on that day to slow it down. It's difficult to do. But what you all are experiencing here today is the aftermath of that decision. It's taken me a year to do it. It's hard to do. I get 750 speaking requests a year. I'm taking 2 of them next year. And we're taking a videotape and letting that take the place of what I've been doing. I never have completely cut my family out. I've been living by those standards, but I want to do better, especially when the little kids are small. I value those years. Folks, can I crack the door just about 1.5 inches and let you see me really the way I am? No guile, no games. It's dangerous to do that. Most of us never get around to it, but I can't help you unless I'm honest with you. I want to tell you something that I really care about. You want to know number 1 to me? At the top of the list, above all else, number 1, this is it. I bear an enormous, continuing burden for the spiritual welfare of my children. It is sometimes so heavy that I ask God to remove it from me. Not because they're doing poorly. We've been very blessed. They're physically healthy. They're happy kids. They're doing well in school. But because I know I haven't won them yet. They still hang in the balance. And there is not one thing in my life that even comes close to comparing in significance to the task of winning those children to God. And they hang in the balance, and there's a tug of war for them. I told you I want to tell you something personal. I don't want to violate a spiritual principle, but I think God would have me do this. Not to brag, oh my, not to brag, but to influence you perhaps to do the same thing. We are so aware, Shirley and I, of our inability to do that job of raising our children properly and preventing all those influences out there that are harmful, that we have since October 1st, 1971, up to 3 days ago, devoted 1 day a week to fasting and prayer, specifically for the spiritual welfare of our children. Shirley, in recent years, has not been physically able to do it, and that's all right. We don't get under pressure. It's not a guilty thing. We're not trying to hurt. We're not trying to have an ascetic kind of approach. But just quietly saying, Lord, here I am again. Lord, when you list all the things that I care about, when you list all the things I've asked you for about my health and the health of my family and my job and all the things I'm trying to do and the new book and all that stuff, Lord, when you put it all on the list, put this number one. If you can only answer one prayer for me, put this one at the top of the list. Keep the circle unbroken. That I care about. I am an evangelical. I want to evangelize as many people as possible. I want to influence you. That's what brought me here. But my number one job is to evangelize my children. That exceeds everything else, and everything else is pale and washed out by comparison. And I see life as a three-way relay race. Your earthly father runs the race first, carrying the baton. And the baton is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he makes his lap around the track. And there came a time for most of you when your mother and father handed the baton to you. And you took it and you began making your lap in the track. And the scary thing, folks, is that there will come a time when you will transfer the baton to your kids. Then they will either take it and run with it or they won't. And the frightening thing is that any coach of track will tell you that relay races are won or lost in the transfer of the baton. That's where you lose it. That's where you drop it. You don't drop it on the backside of the track. You drop it in the transfer from one generation to the other. And I want to tell you from my value system, number one, is that if my kids don't get that baton in their hand, I really don't care very much how fast they run. I don't care what they accomplish in life. I don't care how much money they make. If they don't take that with them, then I have failed. And what brings me to this point of urgency is that I am dealing with parents who have been in Christian circles all their lives who have lost their kids. And I have drawn the conclusion that you can go to church and make all the right noises and pay your tithes and go to the annual picnic and do all that stuff and lose your kids. And if you doubt that, look in the Old Testament at the story of Eli. Eli the priest, God's man, didn't get around to disciplining his kids and he lost them. That bothered me. You know what bothered me more? Is the saintly Samuel grew up in the same synagogue as Eli's child, and Samuel watched that whole process take place. And Samuel grew up as God's man. Samuel watched Eli lose his kids, and Samuel lost his too. And what that said to me is that will God honor me with the automatic salvation of my children because I'm out here talking to you if I am not home doing my homework and if I don't have time to be with them? And I don't think He will. But I want to tell you all something. I do not face the future with fear. I face it with a great deal of enthusiasm and excitement because God has heard my prayers and is continuing to hear them. And I have a heritage coming down. I got to tell you one more thing. I am very distressed by ministers, especially on television, whom I feel and suspect, maybe this is unfair, but I suspect they're building a constituency by telling people what they want to hear. And one of the messages people want to hear is that if you become a Christian, you won't have any more trouble. And it's not right, folks. Jesus said, in this world ye shall have tribulation. Count on it, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world.